Philadelphia Eagles. Last year, they went 11-6. Their home record 6-2, away record 5-4. They started the season 8-1, and then after the bye week, 10-1, and then after the season started, you're right, 8-1, but I use the bye week as a break off point. So 10-1, and then they went 3-6 to end out the season, or 8-1 to start the season, 3-6 after the bye, 3-6. You fucked me all up.
I know what you meant. I know they went 1-5 in the back after the first 11 games,
and then with losses to Seattle Cardinals, the New York Giants, which is a bad one, and then obviously the Buccaneers in a playoff loss. Do you have anything that you want to comment about from this season, and even from a fan's perspective?
Yeah, they also lost to, this wasn't down the stretch, obviously, but they lost to the Jets. That was their first loss of the season. Just a pitiful game.
To Zach Wilson.
To Zach Wilson, yeah.
Sorry, I forgot to add that.
I think Jalen threw, 4 interceptions that game.
Remember when they were like, "We let you guys score"?
Yeah, that was so stupid.
And then they still lost. But go ahead. Yeah. Sorry, my bad.
But they did have some good wins in there. They beat the Chiefs, Bills, Cowboys, Dolphins, Rams. So that's worth noting. But
yeah.
So, hey, listen, you can't get on me for pointing out one good thing about them.
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. So the 2023 Eagles and the 2022 Eagles on paper were, through these first 12 games, were
the best
basically the same team. On paper, the 2023 Eagles were better from a stat perspective. But if you watched the games like I did, you could tell how drastic 2022 was to 2023. So through the first 12 weeks, they scored more points and were better versus the spread than the 2022 Eagles, which, had I not looked that up, I would have thought was an incorrect stat. So just watching these games, not even the first 12 weeks, the whole season, you could just tell that there was something drastically off offensively. The defense is what faltered down the stretch, but the offense wasn't great either. But there was at least some at the beginning of the season. The offense just looked so out of shape, out of sorts. It looked slow, and there was pretty much no rhythm for this offense the entire season compared to what we saw in the 2022 version of the Eagles. And although they were winning, it wasn't happening in the same way that the 2022 version of this team was. 2022, these guys were winning at halftime of every game, and they were able to pull their starters in the fourth quarter because they solidified a win, as opposed to this team where they were leading at halftime in half the games of the season and pretty much had to fight back down the stretch in the fourth quarter to win these games. Now, obviously you want to win, or obviously you want to be winning at halftime and have that opportunity to pull your starters late in the game. But I don't think that that's ultimately the worst thing that they had to fight back, but you could tell that there was just something wrong. And
how realistic
carried throughout the season? Yeah, it's not realistic, but you could just tell that there was something way wrong. And the week-to-week thing was, yes, we won, but there was still it almost felt like there was no cohesion. There was no offensive game plan week to week. There was no modification of anything week to week. It was, okay, these are the same things we're going to do. These are what won us these football games, and we're not going to veer away from any of that. And it hurt them down the stretch.
Yeah, I think something that you can point out right away is the coaching. Brian Johnson and Sean Desai, the OC and the DC last season, both of their strategies became extremely predictable and on both sides of the football, and at a point flat awful, where it got to the point where Sean Desai actually got relieved from play calling duty. So it just, on both sides, it was extremely bad. Lastly, I fear that Nick Sirianni is just like not that guy. He got exposed last season. I think one of the biggest stories of the offseason that Eagles fans love to sit around and love to try to put like a blanket over the fire is Jalen Hurts camp obviously leaked the story that him and Sirianni don't get along. And for some reason, Jalen Hurts stood up on like the podium and like acted like that wasn't the case and like that like just didn't exist and tried to like sweep it under the rug. Well, like, hate to break it to anybody, like his team leaked that to the media. So I think that that's like one of the weirdest stories of this offseason, to walk into this season with like clear disdain, clear problems out in the public, not just within the building, between the quarterback that you're paying $250 million and the head coach of the football team. I mean, I don't understand what the purpose of that was. And I think that article, I don't think that helps their relationship in any way, shape, or form, no matter what they say.
And yeah, and it sucks because I'll sit here and I'll see the Eagles go live on Twitter and they do like the coaches talk before practice or after practice. And we have to sit here and watch Sirianni say, oh yeah, like me and Jalen are great. Like we're building our relationship every day. Like it's not just like a one day thing. It's you got to grow with this other person, all this and all that. But like,
that's such a problem.
In the back of my head, I'm like, okay, yeah, I expect you to say that because you're not going to go out there and say, yeah, we don't get along. Like, that's not the right thing to say if you're the head coach talking to the media at this point. But like in the back of like my head, and I'm sure plenty other Eagles fans' head is, all right, well, there's a clear disconnect here between what Jalen wanted offensively and what Nick Sirianni wanted offensively. And they continued to butt heads on that. I mean, I think the best thing is for Sirianni to just like leave Jalen alone. And that's not what you want as a coaching staff. That's not what you like.
I disagree.
That's a bad thing. I think that's bad.
I think you're viewing the situation wrong.
Okay, that was really weird. I said Sirianni, and on my iPad, Siri popped up and started yelling at me.
I think you're reading the situation completely wrong, respectfully. I think really what it comes down to is Jalen Hurts is a decent quarterback, but not elite, and he needs a coaching staff to bring the best out of him. He is not getting the best out of this current coaching staff for his game to grow, and he's saving.
But I don't think it's Sirianni that's going to be the one that does that.
But at the end of the day, like, he's still your coach going into the season, like no matter what.
Right. I know that, and I don't think that Sirianni should like go out of his way necessarily to like not be around Jalen, because that's pretty much inevitable. Like you can't do that as a head coach. But like,
well, if that's true, Jalen Hurts is an absolute diva. Like, if that's the case that he's,
I don't think that Jalen's going to do. I don't think that Jalen's like hates him by any means to like that point. I just think that they had a severely different idea of what they wanted offensively, and I think that Kellen Moore has to do a really good job as an offensive coordinator, or it's going to get really ugly for Sirianni and for the Eagles. I think there's might be more pressure on Kellen Moore than anybody else.
I mean, at the end of the day, Kellen Moore is just going to go out there and coach. Sirianni's just like, he'll get fired halfway through the season if this doesn't go well. It's really that simple.
I don't think the Eagles would fire him halfway through the season. I don't think that's how they do head coaches, but it would be at the end of the year.
If the Eagles start off 1-4 and the fans, the media, everything, Philly has the worst fan media base of all time. You're telling me that if this team starts off 1-4, that they're just going to weather the storm with Sirianni? You're wrong.
Yes, I don't think that's going to happen. They've never done that for a head coach.
They haven't, but I think that the vibes going into this season are already bad. And I think that they're going to be like, fuck, how do we reverse this we have to get rid of the problem. Sirianni's the problem. There's a reason why this article came out from the Jalen Hurts' squad, because they want to make it known right away. If we start off bad, it's not my fault. It's Sirianni's fault.
I also don't think they start off 1-4 from a complete. That's just completely unbiased. Like, I'm looking at their schedule and they're better than these teams. So like, I don't even think that.
Okay, but okay,
I don't think that even comes up.
What I said into account. Take what I said into account against the teams that they're playing. If they start off 1-4, I think it's a real chance that they would fire Sirianni halfway through the season. I still
don't think so.
I guess
we can disagree on that. I still don't think so. I just don't think the Eagles will run. I just don't think that's how they run their coaching situations.
Well, they should probably consider it. Like I said, I think that you're reading the situation slightly wrong. I think Jalen Hurts is trying to cover his ass. He didn't have a good season last year, plain and simple. And what needs to happen is he needs Kellen Moore to pretty much bring the best out of him in his game and help him continue to develop. And I think that there is already a little bit of a question mark in the back of his head where he's like, okay, like I need to get out in front of this story so I don't look like shit.
I think that
he's playing the game.
I mean, sure. But I think that Jalen needs an opportunity to. I think Shane Steichen was an elite offensive coordinator, and we've seen that carry over to him at the Colts. I think last year, Nick Sirianni. There was rumors that Nick Sirianni was the one that was running the offense, and if you watched that the play calling of that offense, I would be equally as pissed off as Jalen was too. Now, I don't know the type of freedom that he had in that offense to change things up, but if there wasn't a ton and he's like, all right, this is what the play is, like, this is what we're going to do, I'd be fucking furious, because the play calling was like when you're playing a game of Madden and you're like running down the clock and you have 1 second to pick and you just get stuck picking like the same 4 plays. That's what it was like watching the Eagles offense last season.
So does that tell you more about like Jalen, their trust in Jalen Hurts, or do you just think that they're just like flat incompetent?
I think there's definitely, I think it might be a somewhat of probably a little bit of both. I mean, I would hope that your quarterback that you were just in the Super Bowl with had an MVP caliber season. I would hope that you would have more confidence in him to control an offense. And I also think it was some of Nick Sirianni being, hey, this offense was really good and I had no part of it last year. I want to show that I'm a competent offensive-minded coach and I can handle this too. So I think that there's a little bit of both of those things. Ego is what it comes down to.
The brutal. That's why I'm saying this guy should probably get out of the building if they start off slow. Let's have a Jalen Hurts conversation, because I think his improvement as a pocket passer has improved like since he's gotten into the league. But I think that's coaching staff based. And I think to make sure that continues, I said this already, he needs to have the coaching staff bring the best out in him. He's not going to do it by himself. I think mobility obviously remains his best quality. But he's at his he's throwing his best footballs when he's stationary. And if he was willing to stay in the pocket like a second or two longer, his decision making would improve. He would take fewer hits and he would have far more accurate throws. So I guess what I want to see out of Jalen Hurts this year is like, instead of dropping back and always taking off to run and not giving the offense an opportunity to kind of develop, I want to see Kellen Moore bring that out of him personally.
Yeah, see, I disagree with some of that, because last year he held on to the football longer than he did in 2022, and the outcome was much worse.
Well, there's a point.
So I don't think he's
where you
I
have
think
to.
that.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was saying that he held onto the football in the pocket much longer than he did last year, and we saw how just incoherent that entire offense looked. So I think that the scheme was just not great, and there was certainly issues. I'm not blaming it all on just the scheme, but like Jalen has to be better too, 100%.
Yes.
But there's I don't think he's too quick to get. I think there was maybe a certain point later in the season, but I do think that he held the ball too long last year, and I don't think he was as quick in the grand scheme of the season to leave the pocket, as you're saying.
Yeah, I guess I just disagree completely with you, and we're going to be far off on a lot of this stuff because I don't know why, but I don't know what the reasoning is. We never see the Eagles the same way for whatever reason that is. But Jalen Hurts' issue is not staying in the pocket long enough. His pocket presence has been his issue since he's gotten into the NFL. So if you felt that he was holding on to the ball maybe a little bit too long last season with an offensive line, I guess that's how you saw things, and maybe I'm misreading it. But I think that if Jalen could figure out a way to maybe balance it a little bit better instead of always taking off, I think that we're going to see him become a better passer. That's what I have seen from him over the last few years.
I think they also just need to not they threw the ball behind the line of scrimmage at an insanely high rate compared to 2022. It jumped 8%. It was 20% in 2022 and 28 in 2023. Like, they might have ran more one-step wide receiver screens than any other team that I ever seen in the NFL.
Yeah.
With Julio Jones too, who's 37.
And I guess my question for you is then, like, why were they doing that? Like, do you just what is your assessment on Jalen Hurts? Like, do you think that he's that guy that can sling it around? I mean, they have the weapons built around him as if he is like a gunslinger almost, in a way, where they have a lot of talent from like a receiver perspective. Do you think that all of that's necessary in the makeup of this team for Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, I do, because I think a couple things. One, I think that it's foolish to not try to surround your quarterback with the best players possible. That's like my first and foremost thing. Like, if you have the opportunity and you can leverage the cap and work the cap as well as the Eagles have done, like, maybe obviously it's probably going to hurt them down the road, but if you have an opportunity to bring in talent and put it around your quarterback, I'm all in on doing that. I think it's foolish if you have the opportunity to do it and you don't. I think that Jalen Hurts has talent, but just like any quarterback, I still think you need to have competent coaching around you. I don't really think there's that many guys that can make up for bad coaching. And I mean, Jalen's one of them. Like, I think he has talent. Otherwise, they wouldn't have won 11 games. But there's only so much you can do. Like, you get handicapped as a quarterback when the coaching around you isn't great.
Yeah, and you made a good point. Like, why would you not surround your quarterback with all that talent? Like, it might hurt them in the future. Honestly, the way I look at it, it hurts them right now. This defense isn't good. I just like there's nothing like.
There's questions for sure.
I am low key completely convinced that they didn't fix any of their problems on the defensive side of the football from last year. They tried to. They obviously hired Vic Fangio, but like, all the stories from Vic Fangio from last season is that he was like a complete disconnect with the players. He's from like a different era of football. I don't know if that is going to be the same in Philly, but I feel like that's obviously something that should be noted. And then, like, for the rest of their defense, like the linebackers, Devin White, Zach Braun, I just like really don't like. Devin White just hasn't played good football in a few years. I don't know why he would start playing good football now. And then the secondary, I looked at their depth chart today. Keely Ringo's starting for them. I don't love that at all. And then you have Quinion Mitchell. Slay is their nickel now. CJ Blankenship. And then they kind of need Jordan Davis or Jalen Carter to be one of those guys, play like 80% of the snaps, which they've really never done in their entire career. I just don't love this what they've done with this defense. And I think like when I saw Keely Ringo starting for them at corner, I was like kind of shocked.
He's not going to be the starter. It's going to be Isaiah Rodgers. It's going to be Rodgers, Slay, and then Quinion Mitchell in the slot.
I mean, okay, Isaiah Rodgers starting at corner. I know Isaiah personally, great guy, all-time kick returner. That doesn't change how I feel about who's starting a corner, him or Kayla. That doesn't mean too much to me. I just don't think neither of those guys are really good. And obviously Slay's another year older. I don't know. I just think that this. I looked at this. My input like going into all of this was like the Eagles fixed their secondary, and then looking at like everything they did, I'm like, did they actually fix their secondary? And probably not. Not really.
I mean, we're gonna find out. Like
Yeah.
they'll have a rookie and another guy that didn't play in a year coming in and being starters. I think CJ Gardner Johnson's good, but he was injured last year, so I like them adding him because I think he's good when he's
Oh
healthy.
yeah, I like him.
Obviously, there's an injury risk there, and he's already had success in Philly once before. Um, but I think you talk about the defensive line. I think that that's the role that you step into as a rookie, as a second year guy. Sorry, like if you're gonna be good, you have to be able to play a lot of the snaps. And like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
understand they didn't do that at Georgia, but I mean I think they're more than capable of it. I think
Mhm.
there is an adjustment that you have to make going into the NFL. That's just part of it. Like by default, you're gonna play less games in college in a season than you do in the NFL. So, I mean, Jalen Carter did fall off towards the end of last season, but we saw how dominant he was at the very beginning. I'm not really surprised by that because of going from 14 to 18 games. Um and then I think the thing with Jordan Davis is he's just got to get in better shape and stay in better shape. He he came into camp looking a lot better and I've heard some good things from him in camp, but he needs to be more impactful for where he was drafted, which was what 15th, I think.
What is your confidence level of this defense going into the season?
I can confidently say that I think it's going to be a better unit than it was last year. The bar
Well,
was
they were.
obviously on the ground, so
Yeah.
like I, I don't know how good I think they can be. Like I
Because
don't have
two
a
years
ceiling on
ago,
them.
2 years ago they were top 10 unit. So
They were.
I I don't think I think it's just ridiculous how much this unit has regressed from 2 years ago. And like even going into this season, I just don't really foresee them being a top 10 defense. And I think that's a really big issue. And even down to like losing Hassan Reddick and adding Bryce Huff. Bryce Huff, the best ball that he played in New York was when he was just in on pass rushing downs. And then transitioning that guy into a
Yeah.
3 down rusher, I just don't really see it. I could see their run game potentially, their run defense potentially taking a hit because of that, which is fine when you have those two big dogs in the middle if they can step up and play the way that we think that they can. But I was just curious what you thought. Like, so it sounds like you're okay with what they did, but it doesn't sound like you're expecting much out of this unit. Am I reading that right or no?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that I can sit here and expect them to be a top 10 defense when they're bringing in a guy that was injured last year. They're starting two new linebackers. They're starting two new guys at corner,
Yeah.
and they're going to be starting one new guy on the defensive line. Like, I can't sit here and tell you with that many question marks along the defense that I think they're going to be a top 10 defense. Like, that's also a thing is you got to have guys step up if you're going to be when you have that many holes to fill on defense. Like, do I realistically think that everybody is going to answer the call? Like, do I think that Zach Bond and Devin White and then everybody and then Ringo, Rogers, all these
Quinion
guys are going to
Mitchell.
play
Yeah.
above their pay grade? That's no, that's probably unrealistic. But if you can get a couple guys that like if you can get like 3 out of 5 of them to play, then I think that this defense should be pretty good. But I don't know. That's asking. Is that asking a lot to get 3 out of 5 of those guys to play like above pay grade?
I don't know. I don't think it should, but again, I just feel like this team has such bad vibes going into the season. That's the only reason why I'm bringing any of this up. Like, just because they're a bad vibes football team. Like, it's reminding me a little bit of like, and this is an extreme comparison, so don't get mad at me. but like the Brandon Staley situation, like going into last season, like with the Chargers, where it's just like there was talks about Sirianni getting fired pretty much since like when they went on that losing streak, when they lost in the playoffs all off season. They were like, should they hire Bill Belichick? They didn't do it. They kept him in. And now they're going into the season and it's just like bad vibes. And it's just, for me, it's feeling like one of those teams, even though they have some supreme talent across the board.
I think the bad vibes are generated for once more so of outside of Philadelphia than anything else. I'm seeing all of this stuff on Twitter about how well they look in camp and how honestly how good things are.
Yeah.
And that's not what you're telling me is completely different than what I'm seeing inside of camp. So like I think it's more bad vibes from the outside that people are just not sure what's going to happen. I think the vibes inside Philadelphia are much better than that. I think the Sirianni Jalen Hurts thing is definitely something to keep an eye on, undoubtedly. But Jalen Hurts has had like the best training camp he could have possibly had. I think the vibes of being bad from what you're seeing are 100% from the outside.
I think
like you don't have videos of like people inside of Philadelphia like Chris Olave being like, there's no good plays that we're running. Like you don't have any of that.
Well, no, but their expectation is to go and win a Super Bowl. I mean, there's really not. Why would there be bad vibes?
Yeah,
like the Saints are not expecting to make the playoffs. Like I'm
that's why I'm saying I think it's from outside of the like the media that is not directly Philadelphia. I think that they're generating the bad vibes. I don't think there's any really bad vibes going on right now.
All right.
Well, they've had great practices against the Ravens and the Patriots. I mean, I think things are going really well for them.
All right. Well, let's get into more bad vibes because obviously you lost Kelsey on the offensive line. He's probably the greatest center of all time. Would you say probably?
Yeah, definitely one of them. Yeah, one of them for sure.
So first thing I'm thinking, obviously you lose the best center of all time. That has to mean something. Like it has to. I don't care what anybody says. You have guys switching positions, not many, but a few, like moving around. And then the one glaring hole in the offensive line that I can't get over is they have Mekhi Becton as a starter. He has not been good anywhere that he's been, and he hasn't been able to stay healthy anywhere that he's been. And I think that that's a major red flag on the offensive line is having Mekhi Becton as a starter and losing probably the greatest center to ever play football.
I mean, take this as you will, but Mekhi Becton has had a good camp.
Had a great camp.
I don't know. I don't know what else to tell you. Like the Eagles media is the first one to tell you if somebody sucks. But like, I'm not.
You know who had a good camp last year too?
I don't know.
Kenny
I don't
Pickett.
follow the.
Kenny Pickett had a good camp.
We know that he sucks.
I mean, I definitely understand, and I think that that's awesome that these guys are having a good camp. But I mean,
I know it's just training camp. It's going to be. We'll see what happens when the regular season starts. However, if there was a situation that he could come into and flip things around, it's probably in Philly.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little. I'm
more concerned about the Jason Kelsey situation than Mekhi Becton. I'm sorry.
I'm just a little down on the Eagles offensive line. That's all. I mean, Lane Johnson's obviously getting older. He gets hurt every single season, even though he plays through it. He's a dog. And then obviously you lose that guy and have a few other guys moving around. I think it's something to keep an eye on. The offensive line it's going to have a different feel this year. Not having a guy who was essential to the offense is going to matter. He was just as important as like the quarterback, in my opinion.
For sure. And for sure. But that's to be expected. And I think with that loss of like pretty much your captain on offense, I think that Jalen has to step up and take over that responsibility of pretty much like being the captain on offense. Like he has to take over that role, and I think he's looking forward to it, is what he's saying. And I mean, we'll see how it goes. But losing Kelsey obviously sucks. There's really no other way to put it.
All right, let's get into some additions that they made this offseason. They obviously added the one, the only Saquon Barkley. I want this guy to rush for 2,000 yards this season. I don't know if that's possible, but I would love to watch it happen. I think that could be an absolute game breaker on the Eagles offense.
Yeah, it would be amazing. And it's still like, it doesn't feel real that he's on the Eagles yet. And I don't know if that's going to happen until like after the first game or like when I see them actually line up against Green Bay. But yeah, it's still wild that he's in Philly. He'll have a better offensive line than he's probably ever had in his NFL career. And
No
I mean,
doubt.
2,000 yards would be great, but like, I'm not going to expect that. But
no,
I
know. I want him to.
I think he's very liable to have a very, very good season this year. And I think with Kelsey gone, I think it's not unrealistic to say that the tush push might not be as effective, which I think kind of also played a role into them getting Saquon. Because Saquon's probably the best back they've had since LaShawn McCoy.
Is it effective because the center, or is it effective because of Jalen Hurts?
I think it's probably both, but like if Jalen's not running it, I still think the offensive line gets a good push, but I still think Jalen's smart enough and strong enough in that situation to score. But we know how Jason Kelsey runs it. We know how good that he's been running it. I don't know what Cam Jurgens is how well Cam Jurgens is gonna run it when he gets in there. I would like to say it's gonna work the same, but like I can't expect them to go in there and be. They ran it. They were effective at 92.5% the time they ran it last season. So losing
that's such
one of the two most important. It's crazy, but losing one of the two important players on that play, I would expect it to fall.
No, that's fair. It's such a cheesy play. I actually hope that they don't run it, but I mean, it works, so it's like whatever. But still, it's cheesy. They added Bryce Huff. We talked about him already. Zach Braun, Mekhi Becton, Paris Campbell,
Paris Campbell,
Paris Campbell, Johnny Wilson, the guy who can't run and chew gum, and John Ross, the biggest Madden goat of all time, and Will Shipley.
CJ Gardner-Johnson as well.
And CJ. I forgot that he even left the team. He just should have never left. That was the dumbest shit ever. That was like him leaving was just like dumb. Do you have anybody else that you want to talk about who they either added, and do you want to talk about who they lost? I know Fletcher Cox retired and Kelsey.
Yeah. I was just going to say they also Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, and Jeremiah Trotter Jr. I don't know how good Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is going to be, but it's cool to say that like the Eagles added him because his dad played for them.
He's a
and
Nepo
then
baby.
They did. Okay.
He is. He's not good. He's a Nepo baby.
They lost Fletcher Cox to retirement. Great season or great career. It was always fun watching that guy play, and I hope he hangs around and enjoys retirement. But other than that, they didn't really lose anybody.
Hassan Reddick.
Outside of Hassan Reddick, Kelsey, and Fletcher Cox, they didn't lose anybody that I'm gonna miss.
That's fair. That's
that they didn't already fill in. They added a better player for.
All right.
Plus Watkins.
Yeah. Thank God. What makes the Eagles special? I mean, I think Devontae Smith is like going to be one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Especially with
he's going to have more receiving yards. He's going to have a better season than AJ this year.
Yeah, I love him, and I love him in this offense with I can't even remember the OC's name anymore.
Kellen Moore,
and yeah, I just think that he's legitimately special. Like everybody sits around and is like doesn't talk about how good he is, and people will like try to compare skinny guys to Smitty, but he's like
So
a
disrespectful.
one of one. He won a Heisman in college. Like he's just so
Best
different.
college receiver ever.
So yeah, I love him personally. So I'm excited to watch him play this year, and I think that he's gonna have a massive breakout season. You have AJ Brown. I feel like he's a little bit of a one-trick pony, but he's elite at it. So it is what it is. He's big and strong, and that's what he's good at. And obviously, you add Saquon Barkley, he's a fucking animal, and then you have Jalen Hurts, like their skill group. And if you want to add the tight end in there as well, Goddard, like they have an elite skill group, and there's really not much to complain about. Even though Eagles fans love to complain about how they don't have a third receiver.
I mean, that's just being extremely nitpicky. I wasn't even going to say that, but
Not you.
Yeah.
Why you get so defensive?
oh no, I was just
You
going to
get
say
so
like I wasn't even going to
defensive.
bring that up.
Yeah.
I don't even think it's worth even mentioning.
Like you have Paris Campbell.
Okay, yeah,
Like,
great.
he's a dog.
I
He
hope so.
is.
If Buddy
He's
can
just
stay
not
healthy.
Do you have anything else that you want to add that you think is elite for them?
I mean, I think if you can get Jalen Carter to be as good as he was for that full season, for the first 10 games for the full season as he was at the beginning of last season, I think you're going to have somebody really special for a long time.
Bro, what's weird about I think he will be good, but what's weird about defensive tackles is they all kind of break out like a little later in their career, like 20,
Right.
25, 26, like season. So I do think he's going to be like, I think he's going to be like a game breaker, but I just don't know. I don't know why that's the reasoning, why they break out later in their career, but maybe he's an anomaly. I think he could be. He's different. He's scary.
Listen, if I have to wait until he turns like 25, 26, so be it.
Yeah. No, I know.
I'd rather wait and have a cemented top 5 D tackle in the NFL for however many years and be good to go. And then I think I'm really excited to see Quinyon Mitchell. I will say that the one thing that I have a question is like, I do think Quinyon Mitchell is going to be really good, but there's either like Isaiah Rodgers starting on the outside. It's either that guy's going to have a crazy year and was going crazy in camp, which I saw that he was playing well, or Quinyon Mitchell's just not that good. I don't know what it is because normally when you draft a wide receiver, a corner in the first round like that, they pretty much get slated to start right away.
That's what scares, dude. That's literally what scares me. Like the Cooper DeJean and the Quinyon Mitchell pick, like, are they just not that good? Like, I'm just worried about it. Like, I don't know. Like, I think that they could be good, but like this team's windows right now, like no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like they are like, if they don't win a Super Bowl this season, people are getting fucking fired. So like,
I was gonna say I'm not as worried. I don't think there's as much pressure on Cooper DeJean as there is like Quinyon. Like Cooper DeJean like missed a bunch of training camp because he was injured,
and he's white.
He's playing this week. He's playing this weekend, but he's practiced not that much. So like,
you didn't like Cooper DeJean anyway.
I know. I'm also not like worried about him coming in and making an immediate impact right away.
It's not your guy.
I think I would expect a first round corner, a guy that everybody was extremely high on, and Quinyon Mitchell to come in and make an impact. But like, I guess if you don't have to do it as the cornerback too, because you have a guy that's been balling, then that's a good thing.
Mm.
Like if you take Quinyon Mitchell in the first round and it's like, yeah, we have another guy that's been playing his ass off, like we don't have to worry about slating him in at corner too. We can use him as a nickel, as a slot. Yeah, I mean, why else would he be starting a corner at the other corner position?
I think if Rodgers is your starting corner, there's an issue. I really do.
I don't know. We're gonna find out.
Yeah,
we're gonna find out week 1.
Listen, Isaiah Rodgers. If you watch Isaiah Rodgers at UMass, go watch. Everybody go pull up his UMass tape. That dude was a fucking god at UMass.
Like every game, he was.
You
a
have to
fucking
be. You
man.
literally have to be that good to make it in the NFL out of UMass.
Yeah, he was a dog. But we're so all over the place. But what were we just talking about?
Though we were talking about strengths,
Oh,
and I
weaknesses.
mentioned Jalen Carter and
No, we were talking
hopefully his
weaknesses.
cornerback room.
All right, and then do you have any weaknesses that you want to point out that you that I didn't?
Linebacker. I
Yeah,
mean,
their
you talked
linebacker's
about
terrible.
those two guys. Yeah, I'm worried about those two guys. Zach
Why can't they get
Bond
it right?
was coming off an injury. I don't know. They just prioritize. They just try to like beef up the D line and hope that they can find like cheap options at linebacker, and
Can we agree on something real quick?
it's just not paying off.
Can we agree on something real quick? Nolan Smith was an awful first round pick.
Yeah, I wish he was
He doesn't
better.
play.
Like
Doesn't
he's just
play.
gonna be a rotation guy like the rest his whole life.
Yeah, and he was a first round pick. I mean, that was just like a brutal pick. But sorry, I don't know what made
he's
me
gonna
think
be a
of that.
rotation guy. I mean, I'm fine with him being a rotation guy because I think he has been good in flashes, but like not for a first round pick.
So going into it, let me hear your 2024 prediction for the Eagles. Like, let's hear it.
All right. So one thing that they have in their schedule is they actually have a pretty good rest advantage versus a lot of these teams. So like they're only at a disadvantage one time the entire season. And then they play the 9th easiest schedule. So I feel really good about that combination of things leading into this year. I feel a lot better about the two coaches that they brought in, and I think they probably did as good of a job as they could have done in trying to improve the secondary and bringing in another elite guy in Saquon. I know that I speak for a lot of Eagles fans with this take that the expectations are probably through the roof. They're listed at 10.5 wins.
Yeah.
They're expected they should win the NFC East. I think I said this in another video, but at the bare minimum, they have to win. They have to win what did I say? The first playoff game, and then like if they lose the second playoff game on like a last second field goal, maybe that's okay. But like they need to pretty much win 2 playoff games with the amount of talent that they have on this team. I think potentially, like I said already that there's question marks about the defense, but like if the defense gets rolling, there's plenty of talent on offense that they could just ride the offense, no Diddy, and hopefully win 2 playoff games. So
Yeah.
I think that should be the realistic expectation of this team.
Are you ready for my prediction?
I'm gonna say that you think they
What do you
probably
think
win
I'm
like
doing?
9. I think they I was gonna say I think you're gonna say they probably win 9 games.
That's exactly what I think. I think they're going to go 9-8. I think they finish second in the division. I think that this team starts off awfully slow. I know that you said that you don't think like I don't know, like the teams that they play. I think they're going to drop maybe a game or two to a team that they shouldn't lose to. I think that opening day game against the Green Bay Packers is an awful opening matchup for them. And I could just see this team, like you said, there's so many new parts, new coaches, new O-line, new secondary, new guys on defense. I think it's going to take a lot of time for this team to kind of gel and joint together. And honestly, for Eagles fans and everybody hope that they're playing their best football in November and December instead of September and October. So let's hope that when you're starting to build up through the season, that you get those growing pains out of the way and you start really balling out. That's what I want to see out of the Eagles, to start playing elite football close to the end of the year. And I do think that they would be like the scariest team to go up against at like a 9-8 record because of how good they are. So I'm not down on the Eagles. I just think that they're going to start slow.
I mean, yeah, I do agree with you. But I think that slow start, we see it more so against like maybe like I could see them. I think they're going to lose the first week to Green Bay, unfortunately. And I've
Yeah.
said this to all my Eagles fans already, but I think they probably win against Atlanta, New Orleans, and they get revenge against Tampa Bay. I think the slow part could be even after that. They have a bye week 5, which is not ideal. But then they go Browns, Giants, Bengals, Jags, Cowboys. I think we see the slower stretch in there. And then once they go to Washington, start to ascend as far as like getting their feet underneath them, making sure like getting into a flow basically. And I think that that's all that
Who's their first 4
I think
games
I would
again?
be perfectly okay with that.
Who's their first 4
What?
games? Who's their first 4 games?
Green Bay, Atlanta, New Orleans, Tampa Bay. They could go 2-2. They could lose to Atlanta and Green Bay, but like I feel pretty good about them beating Atlanta. I think the Saints are gonna fucking suck, and then I think there's gonna be some revenge against Tampa Bay. So like
I hope.
they start 3-1 going into the bye, like that's not a bad spot to be. Although
Kinda
a
wish
week
their
5 bye
bye was
blows.
I wish their fucking I wish their bye was a little later, but it is what it is.
I wish it was week 11.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
So, hey, how are you feeling after this episode? Listen, I'm not trying to attack you. You get tense when we start talking about the Eagles. It's honestly low key concerning.
It's my team, dude. I'm passionate about them. I feel like I gave a very honest assessment of them.
Well, how do you feel? That's what
like
I'm trying
about the 2023 season.
Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, I want to preface this with everything is what I see during training camp. That's all I have to base it off of. But it seems like they've had a really good training camp, and like obviously that's gonna be the case. I do feel like though, if there is a media that's going to shit on somebody, it's going to be the Eagles media. And like, if they were having a bad training camp, they would say it. So for the fact that they're saying all of this good stuff, like Jalen looks in control of the offense, all this stuff, like, I don't know. I feel pretty good. Like, it seems like he's taking this offense and learning this offense at a pretty good pace. And I have a really good feeling that this season is going to be much better than last from an offensive standpoint. It seems like the defense has been playing really well too. I don't know like how to take all of this because of how bad they were at the end of last season, but it almost like that doesn't even necessarily matter because they have so many new guys. But my concern is with how many new guys they have. 2 new coaches, and then 1, 2, 3, 5 new starters on defense. Like that can be concerning. Like they just need guys to step up is what it comes down to. But every team needs guys to step up.
Can I give you my real feeling on the Eagles? Like no bullshit, like not trying to joke or troll. Like
Sure.
I do think that they're just going to be like the Chargers last year. I think that they're going to have like 1 or 2 injuries. Things are going to start to snowball. They're going to have like a really bad loss from somebody. Everybody's going to be calling to fire Sirianni. They won't do it, like you said, because like they like honor the coaches or whatever, and like things are just going to get really bad in Philadelphia quick. I don't know why. I don't know why. I have no feeling. I have no reason for it other than like it feels, bro. I know that like the media in Philly like isn't bad vibes. This is definite, like, bro. This is one of those teams when like. And it might not be this, but this could be one of those teams after the season. We could sit here and be like, I actually can't believe that we just didn't see this coming. I don't know why. That's how I feel though.
But see, the thing is, we've really never seen Brandon Staley do it. Like Brandon Staley never went to a Super Bowl. And the coaching staff that Brandon Staley's had has never been good. Like Sirianni's been to a Super Bowl. He had 2 really good coordinators.
But
The
You're
Chargers
right.
have never had that.
You're right, but the Chargers did have real expectations and never met them. That's fair.
I mean, yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Every season going in, they had like pretty loaded rosters, but I listen, I get what you're saying.
I think that's a little dramatic.
I know it's dramatic, but that's why I'm trying to sit here and say, is it even is it a possibility? Is it going to be one of those teams when the season's over, we're sitting around being like, how did we not see this coming?
White clouds blowing out when we max 4-5, not the size, but it could go high line.